Hello everyone and welcome. Good afternoon. So glad to be here once again. Studying a little bit of Torah and preparing ourselves for the high holidays the proper way. Getting inspired maybe. I hope so. So welcome everyone. I see Phyllis Laveman is here. Hi Phyllis. Shalom. I saw Priscilla Kerr. Of course, you're here until your next patient. Thank you. Marinazan, Rocky Pollock. Those are the messages that I can see on the chat. If you are there, please say hello so I can count you in the class. Judy Shorak, welcome. Great to have you here. So today, a little bit different. We are not going to study the Parsha of the week. We are going to study about Rosh Hashanah. Hello, Louis Stern. Welcome. Welcome to the class. I see some of you on Facebook, some of you on YouTube. This is great. And I can read messages from both places. Facebook, YouTube, I can read your messages. So use the chat to say hello or to make comments or to chat among yourselves. That's okay. You see, it's like a classroom. So I know sometimes people like to chat in the classroom. You like to chat in a classroom? Let me know in the comment. My son, for example, he loves chatting. And it's funny because what happened is when you're chatting too much in your classroom, what the teachers do is they move you away. They move you around. They will sit you somewhere else, but they don't realize that if you're a chatter, you're a chatter. You're gonna find somebody else to chat with, no matter where they sit you, right? So as I mentioned before, we are going to study about Rosh Hashanah. Well, because Rosh Hashanah is this coming week. It's that time of the year. That time of the year is going to be very intense. We have wonderful online services this year. Hopefully the next year, pandemic will be history. And we are going to be able to be together. We do have plans, by the way, at Shari Zedek to start opening up a little bit right after the high holidays. Let's see how it goes. We want to follow a little bit closer the statistics and what's going on. And Shelly Chochinov, welcome. You said Alemenjan Solzainen Yor. I guess that's Yiddish. So yeah, same to you. I don't speak Yiddish. I know a little bit. I think the only Yiddish words I know are, I don't know, Google, Kindle. I don't know. Just that's as far as my Yiddish goes. Okay, Rosh Hashanah. Let's. I'm going to take one. I want to teach a few aspects of Rosh Hashanah. And if you want to know more about Rosh Hashanah, what you can do is, so you can also go to our YouTube channels or our famous archive with all the videos. And there is another class that I taught last year about Rosh Hashanah, because it's amazing. It's already another cycle that I've been teaching online because we don't have in-person classes. So we still have last year Torah Lechaim about Rosh Hashanah. You can go back and take a different kind of explanations about it. It's going to be a little bit the same at the beginning, and then I'm going to take a totally different approach of what I taught last year. So again, you still have the chance to go back to the archive and to see what I taught last year for Rosh Hashanah if you want some extra inspiration about the holidays. Yes, Shelly, I know that's Mameloshen. That's Yiddish. Mameloshen. Okay, so Rosh Hashanah. Let me bring it here, and please remember, if you haven't done yet, subscribe to our channels, hit the bell so you will be notified every time we go live or every time we upload something new to our channels. If you want to get notified, you have to hit the bell, not just subscribe. We want you to know each time we go live, or each time we bring something new. So Shana Tova, how do we greet each other for Rosh Hashanah? This is very important. We say Shana Tova. That's what I said at the beginning of the class. Some of you already wished to me that in the chat. We say Shana Tova. Shana Tova, which basically means a good year. Shana in Hebrew means year. Tova in Hebrew means good. You know, Tov or Tova is the same because Hebrew is a gender-sensitive language. So every single word is either male or female. Every single word. It's not like English. The English is basically gender neutral. Many of the words. So you can always, you can say mother, father, but you can also say parent. In Hebrew, we don't have such things. So every word is either male or female, so that's why tov is good when you're talking about something that is male, and tova is the word you use if the word is female. So shana, year, is female. So shana tova. So this is the common greeting that we use for Rosh Hashanah and the days of awe. It's an abbreviation, actually, of the original phrase that it was leshana tova tikatevu betichatemu. May you be inscribed and sealed for a good year. We're going to see during the class why we use this expression. What inscribed where? Sealed where? Just be patient. We're going to study that text. And of course, Shelly Chochinov, this is for you. Mameloshen, we say that Gideor. Gideor is in Yiddish, and I put it here because that's the way many people greet each other in Winnipeg. Yeah, that's what we are. That's what I am. We are streaming from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. And for those of you who want to know, it's 12:11 p.m. Central Daylight Time. Central Daylight Time, CDT, 12:11 p.m. Yeah, again, a good year, same thing, a good year. It almost sounds like English, right? A good year or a good year. That's the greeting that we use. Lots, yeah. Hello, Michael Legoff. Welcome to the class. Yom Tov. Yeah, Rosh Hashanah is also Yom Tov. It's a Yom Tov or Yom Tif. It is a festival as well. It's biblical. But that's what I wanted to say at the beginning. Rosh Hashanah is biblical-ish. Biblical-ish. Why biblical-ish? Well, because even though it's mentioned in the Torah, what is mentioning in the Torah has very little to do with the way we celebrate the holiday in these days. Or let's put it this way, has very little to do with the way we celebrate the holiday after the destruction of the temple. Eventually, you know, for Yom Kippur, I guess the way we do things at the synagogue kind of try to mimic of what it was done at the temple. So there is more connection to the way we celebrate Yom Kippur to the way it was celebrated at the time of the temple. For example, the fasting, the spirit of the day. It's closer. It's closer. But for Rosh Hashanah, very, very little. Who else is here? Maria. Shalom. Shalom, Maria. Where are you from? Just let us know about you. We want to know more about you, Maria. But bienvenida. I see you use Spanish there, Rabino. So I guess it's a safe bet to say that you speak Spanish. Yeah, but welcome. So, again, Rosh Hashanah, coming from the Torah-ish. Let's go to the Torah. Let's see what does it say, actually. Why it said that, kind of. So, well, again, the Lord, this is from Leviticus. Remember, Leviticus, we have a section that is talking about all the festivals. So if you want to have a crash course in Jewish festivals, just go to this section of Leviticus. You will see pretty much everything all together, so you can learn about what was expected from the Jewish people to do for every festival back in biblical times and also in post-biblical times during the time of the temple. So, about Rosh Hashanah, it says in Leviticus 23, verses 23 to 25, again the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the sons of Israel, saying, in the 7th month, on the 1st of the month, you shall have a rest, a reminder by teruah, a holy convocation. You shall not do any laborious work, but you shall present an offering by fire to the Lord. We have somebody from Brazil. Rabbi Anibal, so do Brazil. And I don't speak Portuguese, but I hear Portuguese all the time. Brazil. Welcome. Welcome. It's amazing. The magic of the internet. You can connect virtually everywhere in the galaxy, I guess. Because even if you're on a spaceship, you can still have internet. So who knows? Who knows? So we welcome everyone. So what do we have in these days that it's actually like what is mentioning in the Torah? Well, let's count. Number one is the day of rest. We still believe that in Rosh Hashanah we don't work. We shouldn't be working. Second is the teruah, which in these days we understand it as the blowing of the shofar. And I guess we have a holy convocation because we come to synagogue. Well, we have that for all the holidays, right? We don't work. Yeah, as I said, you should not do any work. You should present an offering by fire to the Lord. We don't do that. We don't bring a sacrifice. So I guess the only direct thing other than the day of rest is that teruah, the shofar. But the funny thing is, that's not even clear that the Torah, the teruah mentioned here is actually the shofar. It was a big debate in the past, and eventually the rabbis decided, yes, even though the word teruah can have many different connotations, we should understand that it is the blowing of the shofar. So, but as you can see here, there is nothing about being the beginning of the year. Nothing at all. In fact, it says there that is the 7th month. It's not the 1st month, the way we understand it. It's at the 7th month. Why is that? Well, because the Bible had a different calendar. The calendar in the Bible starts with the month of Pesach, which is the month of Nisan. So if Nisan is month number 1, then Tishrei, which is the month of Rosh Hashanah, is month number 7. So you can see here in the Torah there is nothing at all, even hinting that is the beginning of the year. That is rabbinic interpretation that we are going to see in a minute. Maria said, Rabino, so the Brazil. So yeah, Spanish is Rabino as well. That's what I said. If I don't know if Roberto Franco sometimes is here, or Josue Selva, that I speak Spanish, that they always call me Rabino. So yeah. Okay, so teruah. Let's study briefly about the different interpretation of the word teruah. We have, for example, in the book of Joshua, chapter 6, verse 5, that it says, and when a long blast is sounded on the horn, as soon as you hear that sound of the horn, all the people shall give a mighty teruah. Thereupon the city wall would collapse, and the people shall advance, every man straight ahead. So basically, you can see here that teruah is not the blowing of the shofar. In fact, the blowing of the shofar is mentioned at the beginning of the verse as a separate concept. He said, when you hear the shofar, then you, people, will give a teruah. Teruah seems to be that it was a big noise, that everybody would start yelling at the same time. And that everybody yelling at the same time, making this big noise, was called a teruah in the context of this verse of the book of Joshua. Okay, so if you want to understand, if you have to understand teruah from this concept, now if you go back to the Leviticus, it says a reminder by teruah. What it seems to imply is every year for Rosh Hashanah we have to come to synagogue, not blowing the shofar. We have to come to synagogue and give a big shout to God. which is not uncommon in certain churches in these days, when people will receive the invitation to give a big shout to the Lord, and everybody will go crazy, making noise, clapping and things. That is coming from the Bible. And it seems to be one of interpretations of the concept of teruah. But, so why are the rabbis understanding teruah as the blowing of the shofar? Because the same word appears in the book of Deuteronomy in a totally different context. It says, but when you sound a teruah, and that is when it's talking about the trumpets, that it used to be used to give signals to the different tribes, so they will move when they had to go from one place to the other. The Bible talks about this system, these codes coming from the trumpet. So different sounds will mean different things. Remember, they didn't have emails back then, so they had to rely on sound. So it says, when you sound a teruah, where it seems to be one kind of sound coming from the trumpets, which you would probably wear, kind of like a shofar, the divisions encamped on the east should move forward. And when you sound short blast a second time, those encamped on the south will move forward. Thus, short blasts shall be blown for setting them in motion. Here you go. So that's why we understand the teruah, this kind of sound coming the shofar that goes a short blast, because it's mentioned in the book of Deuteronomy. So the rabbis decided to take this concept of teruah and not the concept of the yelling for Rosh Hashanah. That's why one of the names of Rosh Hashanah is Yom Teruah, the day of teruah. And to me, it makes the most sense because it's the only one of the names of Rosh Hashanah that has direct connection to the Torah. The name Rosh Hashanah itself is not coming from the Torah, it's coming from the rabbis. Okay? Any comments? I would like to see them in the chat. I want to know what you think about this. This to me is one of the most fascinating things of Rosh Hashanah, the fact that the name Rosh Hashanah itself is not coming from the Torah, at least not the written Torah. It's coming from the oral Torah. Okay? The rabbis say as follow. Actually, there is a complete tractate in the Torah, in the Talmud, that is talking about Rosh Hashanah. It says like this. It is Masechet Rosh Hashanah, page 11a. It says, Rabbi Eliezer said, what is the scriptural source which teaches that the world was created in Tishrei? Okay. So basically, Rabbi Eliezer already knew in his days that there was this tradition that the world was created on the first day of Tishrei. Okay? So for him, that's a fact. That's a given. There is nothing to discuss about. The rabbis already knew, and this came through oral tradition, which supposedly was communicated orally from God to Moses and then from generation to generation, that the world was created on what we call Rosh Hashanah, which is the first day of Tishrei. Okay? Now, Rabbi Eliezer is trying to say, well, I'm not happy just by saying that it's coming from oral tradition. Please show me a different kind of proof, or at least a hint somewhere else that it will say that the world was created on Tishrei, right? Okay. So, and he will present this verse from Genesis. Said, God said, let the earth sprout vegetation and seeds of fruit trees. Okay, and this is Genesis 1:11. Which is the month in which the earth is filled with vegetation and the trees are filled with fruit? This is Tishrei, for this is when the rainy seasons begins. So he's saying, and this is quite fascinating, what Rabbi Eliezer is saying. If God created the fruit and the trees and the fruit and everything, that day, because it was proper for trees and fruit, has to be during the time of the year that is proper for fruits and trees. What is that? is pretty much now, the fall, which they calculated to be the month of Tishrei. So he seems to find some kind of proof in this verse that the Bible, that the world was created on Tishrei. Remember, it's interesting because it's talking about the whole world, but he is kind of talking about the reigns in the Middle East, where he was located, Rabbi Eliezer, at the time that he wrote this. Kind of interesting, right? It's almost like he thought that the first trees were created in the area where he lived. Because if you go to the opposite side of the globe, of the world, it will be the opposite season. Just for you to think about, right? But that is at least. But my point is, back then there was no doubt for the rabbis that the world was created on Rosh Hashanah. And then what they said is something very interesting. So if the world was created on Rosh Hashanah, then it's proper that the world will be judged on the anniversary of its creation. It's like, let's say that you go and you work for a new company. You're a new hire somewhere. And then it's very common that after a year that you're working at a place, your supervisor would sit down with you and you will have a review of your performance. So this is pretty much the same. After a whole year of the world, now it's time to have a performance review made by God. So that's why the rabbis understand that it's so meaningful that Rosh Hashanah that the judgment that we are talking about in Rosh Hashanah happens at the anniversary of the creation of the world. Hello, Gloria. Welcome. Shalom. Shelley, you say the long and short blast are now incorporated into Rosh Hashanah. Yes, that's the sound of the shofar. And rain for the growth. Yeah, but again, the rain is talking about that's the rain, the beginning of the rainy season in the Middle East. And I don't know if you realize we're going to start more about the rain and the connection with the prayers when we study about Sukkot, because according to the rabbis, we should be praying for rain right now in Israel, right now. But then they changed their mind. They said, no, we shouldn't pray for rain right now because in a couple of weeks we're going to have Sukkot. We have to live in Sukkot. We have to live in booth, right? And then if we pray for rain too much, it's going to rain, then we won't be able to enjoy Sukkot. So the rabbi said, who is going to actually pray with intention for rain when they know that if God actually sends rain, they're not going to be able to enjoy Sukkot? So the rabbis decided to delay the prayers for rain until after Sukkot, after we get out of the Sukkah. So then, yes, we can all pray to God with kavanah, with intention to send the rains. You have to understand that. The rabbis were very practical as well. Okay, so let's go back to the concept of God judging the world on Rosh Hashanah. This is from the Mishnah. And it says, on Rosh Hashanah, all creatures pass before God as sheep before a shepherd. Okay? As the verse states, he fashions the hearts of them all. He discerns all of their deeds. So we have the how you call it? The precedent in the book of Psalms of God knowing everything. God knowing everything that we do. And then eventually we have to respond for what we did. When is that happening? Rosh Hashanah. And how is happening? Well, it says like all creatures, it's like sheep before a shepherd. I don't know if you realize this is almost at the end of the day when the shepherd will go out and it will take the sheep all over. They will eat, they will drink, and then eventually it's time to come back. And then the shepherd is bringing the sheep one by one to the barn just to be sure that they're all there, that they're okay. If anything happened at the way, that will be the time where the shepherd will realize that. So that's the kind of image that the Mishnah is trying to bring. But I wanted to bring a midrash, actually, talking about that is very interesting. Listen to this. It says, it was taught in the name of Rabbi Eliezer. Again, Rabbi Eliezer. The world was created on the 25th of Elul. Judge, what you said, Rocky Pollack, let's see what you say here. So, if free will, but God Hashem knows ahead of time what our choices are. No. What it says in the book of Psalms is God knows everything after we did it. It's that we cannot hide anything from God. That's all what it implies. Your question, I could answer yes, but it's not coming from that source. That source is that God knows everything that we do. Okay? That's all. So let's go back to here, because Rabbi Eliezer brings something even more interesting. They said the world was created on the 25th of Elul. So the month of Elul is the month before Rosh Hashanah. So we are right now in the month of Elul. Even more, let me tell you this. Today is the 25th of Elul. You realize that? Today. So according to Rabbi Eliezer, today, this day that we are taking this class, is when the world was created. Happy birthday to the world. So, 25th of Elul. The view of Rav, that was another rabbi, Scott Baker says Scott is interested in Noah's Ark. Well, Noah's Ark, that's a different parsha. Different parsha with the Noah's Ark. Okay, so the world was created on the 25th of Elul. Okay, the view of Rav agrees with the above teaching of Rabbi Eliezer, for we have learned in the shofar benediction composed by Rav. Today is the day of the beginning of your handiwork, the memorial of the first day. It is a decree for Israel, a law for the God of Jacob. On this day, sentences pronounced about countries, which of them is destined for the sword, and which for peace, which for famine, and which for plenty. And each separate creature is scrutinized on these days and recorded for life or for death. So it says, hence, according to this view, it comes out that the first hour of the idea of created man entered God's mind. In the second hour, he took counsel with the ministering angels. In the third, he assembled Adam's dust. In the fourth, he kneaded it. In the fifth, he shaped him. In the sixth, he made him into a lifeless body. In the seventh, he breathed a soul into him. In the eighth, he brought him into the Garden of Eden. In the ninth, Adam was commanded against eating from the fruit of the tree of knowledge. In the 10th, he transgressed. In the 11th, he was judged. In the 12th, he was pardoned. So this is the interesting thing here, because it says that, let's say a few things that we learn from here. It says that today the world was created, but we don't celebrate Rosh Hashanah until human beings were created. Is that clear? That's a very important thing, because we don't celebrate the anniversary of the world until the world was fully created. And it says that on the last day of creation, the day that we call Rosh Hashanah, is when actually everything that we know about Adam and Eve happened. So according to this midrash, the day of Rosh Hashanah was very intense, because human beings were created, they failed, they repented, and they were pardoned. So you can understand how important this day it is, because we have the power to replicate that experience and to ask for forgiveness for everything that we have done. Okay? So also, let me continue with the next paragraph of this midrash. He will say, said the Holy One, blessed be he, to Adam, this will be a model for your descendants. Just that you stood before me in judgment on these days and left with clemency, so the future generations of your descendants will stand before me in judgment on this day and will live with clemency. And which day is that? The first day of the 7th month, Rosh Hashanah. Okay? It's very, very, very interesting. That's the midrash that we used to understand what's going on with these days and why this day is so special for us. Shelly Chochinov, you said, is there something special we do to celebrate these days? Oh, I mean, today, no, nothing special today. Nothing special. It's the beginning of the creation of the world, actually. It's a biblical beginning. So the world was actually not created until the very end when human beings were created. But we just remember it. So, Michael, you said, let's see, Michael Legoff. Let me read what you said. So we work backwards from when God created man to when God created the world 6 days before. So, well, today we start the countdown to creation of Adam and Eve. That's what it is. We start counting the days. Eventually, Rosh Hashanah is when God created us, human beings. Yeah. So, let's continue here. I wrote this nice comment. It said, we conclude from this discussion that Rosh Hashanah was established on the 1st of Tishrei since the world, specifically man or human beings, were created on this day. And on this day, Adam was judged for his transgression. And he did teshuvah. He repented. Remember, the last 2 classes, we talk about teshuvah. If you want to know more about the concept of teshuvah, please go back to the archive and the previous 2 weeks. You will have more information about that. And also that day, God in his mercy, who created the world, pardoned him. Therefore, our forefathers, Abraham and Jacob, were born on Rosh Hashanah through the attributes of kindness and mercy, which is a sign to their descendants that they will be judged together with them through mercy. Michael, you said from the 1st Tishrei back to the 15th, to the 25th of Elul. No. We start on the 25th of Elul and we go up all the way to the 1st of Tishrei. Today is when God said, let it be light, right? And then we keep counting days all the way until Rosh Hashanah. Okay, so basically what it says here is that on Rosh Hashanah, and it's interesting that the Midrash also says that Abraham and Jacob were born on Rosh Hashanah through the attributes of kindness and mercy. This is very Kabbalistic. You have to understand that in Kabbalah we have 3 columns or 3 sides, the rabbis call it. The right, the left, and the center. Abraham represents the right, which is pure mercy. The right side is pure mercy. The left side that represents Isaac is pure justice. And that's why the Midrash doesn't say that Isaac was born in Rosh Hashanah. Because technically in pure justice there is no mercy. But then you have the middle column, that is Jacob. That is a combination of both mercy and justice, or justice and mercy. And that's why the Midrash says that Jacob was also born in Rosh Hashanah, because he incorporated the concept of kindness and mercy. That's the way that we see it. I will hope to talk a little bit more about this during the service of Rosh Hashanah when we read about the binding of Isaac, and how sometimes that is understood as pure and blind obedience and following the law the way it is. If God says, do this, yeah, you do it no matter what. Abraham wasn't like that, because we know that Abraham had no problems to argue with God. Isaac, on the other side, he was following every single rule because he represents the side of the justice, of the severity of following the law. Yeah. So we have to understand that the day of Rosh Hashanah is a day full of mercy. Not so much in Yom Kippur. On Yom Kippur, the left side is predominant. It's more about justice than mercy. So we really have to use the day of Rosh Hashanah as an opportunity to rediscover the concept of mercy and how to relate with God through mercy. On Yom Kippur, everything is going to be about our Father, our King. God is King. It's more complex. Okay? Shelley Chachin of justice tempered with mercy. I don't want to say temper, I will say combined. Combined. We understand that both extremes are bad. It has to be a combination. And that's the beautiful thing about the life of Jacob. Jacob represents both. Jacob is the first one who was able to combine both in his life. It's not a coincidence that Jacob had two names. It's not a coincidence that Jacob was a twin, because it combines the I don't want to get too Kabbalistic here, but it's the concept that he combined the two. There were two individuals before, and then he blended, but that's why Jacob is represented by the number 2. He was a twin, 2 names, 2 wives. Do you realize this? It is very interesting. 2 wives, 2 names, 2 siblings. Think about that. So, yeah. That's how fascinating is Kabbalah. Let's go back to the Talmud now. Because the Talmud says that actually the world is judged 4 times a year. Not only on Rosh Hashanah. It says on Pesach, the world is judged for harvest. On Shavuot, for fruit trees. Remember, because in Shavuot, I guess it depends on, we are supposed to bring the bikurim, the first fruits. You're supposed to bring the best of the best. Nobody's really controlling or checking on you if you're bringing the best of the best or not, but God is. So they said it's important at Shavuot you bring the best of the best. Why? Because Shavuot is also day of judgment. It's the day where God is going to judge the harvest of the fruit tree. So you bring the best. Then on the new year, which is Rosh Hashanah, all the inhabitants of the world pass before God like Bnei Maron. Keep it there. I'm going to talk about Bnei Maron in a minute. As it is stated, the one who created sees together their hearts, the one who understands all their actions. We talk about this. And on Sukkot, there is judgment for water, how much rain we have, and so forth. Now, the question is, what is this Bnei Maron? And I left it, I didn't want to translate it because most of the text that I found of the Rosh Hashanah in the Talmud, Rosh Hashanah, page 16a, they don't even translate it. They just leave it as Bnei Maron. It's the same phrase that you will find in Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur in the Unetane Tokef prayer. Remember that one? Unetane Tokef Kedushat Hayom. What is the version of Shaarei Zedek? Unetane Tokef Kedushat Hayom. That's what it is. If you count the services with Shaarei Zedek, you will hear it there. That version. At one point, the Unetane Tokef brings this concept that all the inhabitants of the world pass before God like Bnei Maron. And it's a very obscure term because it says like we pass before God like the children of Maron or something like that. So it's not clear. It's not clear, but it seems to be very important. If we are going to be perceived by God like Bnei Maron, don't you think we should understand what this means? Well, I will bring to you what the Talmud says that Bnei Maron may mean. Okay. Hi Judy. Bye Judy. Have a good day. Shana Tova to you. Yeah, Judy just said that she has to leave. She has an appointment. Okay. So the Talmud says, on Rosh Hashanah, all creatures pass before him, before God, like Bnei Maron. What is the meaning of the phrase Bnei Maron? Here in Babylonia, they interpreted it to mean like a flock of sheep. Kivnei Imarna. I guess it sounds similar. Kivnei Imarna. So they understood that it was a word that used to be pronounced differently. Now they say Bnei Maron. So that's why they use that phrase. But then Reish Lakish disagreed. This is another rabbi. He disagreed and said, like the ascent of Beit Maron, which was very steep and narrow. What does it have to do with Rosh Hashanah? We'll see in a minute. Rabbi Yehuda said that Shmuel said, so he's quoting Shmuel, like the soldiers of the house of King David. That's what it means. Bnei Maron, it was a name used for the soldiers of the house of King David. So now the question is, what does it have to do with Rosh Hashanah? And what does it have to do with God looking at us like Bnei Maron? What do you think? I would like to see your opinion. If you have any opinion of what you think it means, I would like to know. Then I will give you my opinion. But I would like to see what you think about Bnei Maron. Why we use this phrase during the High Holidays liturgy, or why the Talmud is using this analogy to compare ourselves with Bnei Maron. What do you think? As you type, I have time to have a little water. Okay, I will tell you what I think. The rabbis understand that all these explanations have one thing in common. And let's try to understand it. Number one, when it says Kivnei Imarna, like a flock of sheep, is the same idea of the shepherd counting his or her sheep. That they all have to pass through a narrow place, so they can go one by one, and then it's easier to count the heads and to know exactly how many sheep are there and if they are okay or something went wrong. Okay, so we have this concept of the narrow passage, so everybody go there one by one, so there is an opportunity for the shepherd to pay attention to each one of them. Then Reish Lakish said that that means Beit Maron. You shouldn't say Bnei Maron, but Beit Maron, which is a very steep and narrow. Same thing. There is another episode in the Talmud that is talking about, actually, you can go and search it. It's talking about camels going through Beit Maron, and they said that it was so narrow that if they both tried to cross at the same time, one would fall. There is not enough space for two animals to go. So again, it's the same concept of this narrow place. So when you ascend Beit Maron, you have to be sure that there is one by one. There is not space for two, it's one by one. So it's the same idea. And then the third one is like the soldiers of the house of King David, but it seems to be the same thing, that each one was important. So you have the concept of God looking at everyone. Nobody gets out of God's picture. That seems to be the idea of the comparing us to Bnei Maron. So there are two readings of this kind of individuality. Number one is you can understand that you're responding for your own transgressions, and you will be rewarded by your own merits. Or you can understand that no, what this means is everybody is equally important to God, and that will have a more positive connotation. In fact, the rabbi, and then I guess it's going to go public tomorrow. This is the topic of my dvar in the car for this week, that I'm talking about the rabbinic concept of we enduring the trial of Rosh Hashanah together as a group. So I said, if you stay together in a community, if you belong to the community, then when you have the Rosh Hashanah trial, we all cover our flaws. Because, some people gave tzedakah during the year, some people didn't, some people did good actions, some people didn't. So between all of us, we cover all the bases of what it has to be done. There is a beautiful concept that's why it's so important to stay strong and stay together in one community, so we can all support each other, so we can all guarantee that we are going to be successful in this divine trial. So don't miss that one is going to come out tomorrow, the Devar in the car. But that's why I like this concept, like B'nai Maron, meaning that everybody is equally important to God, like each one of the soldiers of the Hound of King David was important, like every sheep is important to the shepherd. And that's the way I like to take it. But as I say, we have to endure, we have to pass this divine trial. Rocky Pollack, I love this. He says, that's why we all get vaccinated. Yes, we protect each other. That's correct. We protect each other. So let's go back to the Talmud, because the other thing that we have in Rosh Hashanah is this concept, and this is perhaps one of the most famous midrashim for the high holidays, where it said that Rabbi Kruspedai said that Rabbi Yochanan said, on Rosh Hashanah 3 books are opened, one for the thoroughly wicked, one for the thoroughly righteous, and one for the intermediates. The word intermediates in this concept is called Beinonim. Very important. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Right, in a minute. The thoroughly righteous are immediately inscribed and sealed for life. The thoroughly wicked are immediately inscribed and sealed for death. The Beinonim, remember the intermediate, hang in the balance from Rosh Hashanah until Yom Kippur. If they are found worthy, then they are inscribed for life. If not, they are inscribed for death. Just like that. Just like that. So Rashi says that the Beinonim are actually those with both good and bad deeds, and where the deeds are exactly half and half. Right? They could go either way. Right. But, and this is something very important, and the rabbis say that if we take into consideration that in Rosh Hashanah, the concept of mercy is stronger than in Yom Kippur, then it's very important for us to reach the category of righteous before we reach Yom Kippur. Before we reach to that point where justice is stronger than mercy. So if we are saying, because basically we are not saying here that every single thing you do has to be good. We are saying here that in order to make it, all you have to do is you have to be sure that you have in your balance more good deeds than bad deeds. So what the solution is not that difficult. What you have to do is to increase your good deeds, so at the end of the day, when the time for the balance comes, you will have more good deeds than bad deeds. So you won't be a Beinonim or you won't be a wicked. You will be considered righteous, a tzaddik, because you have more good deeds in your account. And that's why it's this tradition during the month of Elul, right before Rosh Hashanah, we start increasing tzedakah, and we start increasing on good deeds and act of kindness and so forth. That's why we had the shofar sounding every day, the month before Rosh Hashanah. That's why we start reading Psalm 27, to realize that this is coming, so we can wake up and start increasing our good deeds. So when the time comes, we will all be righteous. We will all have more good deeds than bad deeds. And it's as simple as that. See, let me bring to you here another very interesting text from Maimonides. And he will say This reckoning is not calculated only on the basis of the number of merits and sins. It's not just simple as that, but also takes into account their magnitude. There are some merits which outweigh many sins, as implied by because in him there was found a good quality. In contrast, a sin may outweigh many merits. As it say, one sin may obscure much good. So the weighing of sins and merits is carried out according to the wisdom of the knowing God. He knows how to measure merits against sins. Yeah, I guess Maimonides said, whoa, not so fast. When you think that you go now and you give one coin to 100 beggars on the street, and then you can be, you could be the worst murderous person in the world, and because you gave money to 100 people, now you have more merits than demerits because you only killed 2 people during the year, but you gave tzedakah to 100. Well, Maimonides said, no, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. You have to realize that there are merits and merits, and there are sins and sins. So only you know actually what you did and what you have to do to move the balance to the other side. Yeah, that's very, very interesting. And I have one more text for you. During the period from the start of the Jewish month of Elul through Yom Kippur, we engage in the work needed to realign our behavior so we can be better partners with God in the work of perfecting the world. We reflect on our actions, deeds, and misdeeds in order to refine ourselves. Have we been reaching out to communicate with God? Do we harbor anger towards God for something that happened this year? Do we feel that God has let us down? How does God view us? Actually, how do you think God is viewing you, right? Have we held up our end of our relationship? At what times in the year gone by have we let God down? Through this process, we uncover the places in which our relationship with God is lacking, and having done so, must move to address these shortcomings. And this is the process known as teshuva, repentance. So that's why we do teshuva before Rosh Hashanah. We realize what we did wrong, and even though sometimes we can't change right away, and that's fine. Sometimes changing takes longer time. At least what we can do is to be aware of that and to increase doing good things. And I don't know if you realize, and this is something that I learned, that we all want, right, to change bad habits. And one trick that I learned is that sometimes changing a bad habit is not so easy. But what you can do is, while you work on it, just why don't you start working and developing a new good habit? It's, developing good habits is way easier than trying to change a bad habit. So one wonderful technique that I learned is that you change habits by learning new ones, and then eventually you're going to starve to death the bad habits when you keep feeding the good habits for the new year. So maybe that should be what we should be thinking for this new year, 5782. Right? I know we all know so many things we want to change. That's all good, but perhaps to think of something that we can do, something new, and something that is good for our lives, good for the world, and just focusing on that new habit until the time comes where we can change the bad habits. So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you for being there, and we are having, so remember, high holidays are coming. We have wonderful services for all of you. I hope you're going to spend the high holidays with us at the Shaarei Zedek. Remember, this year the high holidays services at the Shaarei Zedek are 100% virtual, and 100% free for everyone. No ticket, no passwords. Very easy. Very, very easy. Okay, so all what we are asking you, if you can, helping us with the donation, because we still have to pay bills, right? We try to do things as easy as possible for us, but we ask for your partnership. So you can support what we do so we can keep bringing great things your way. Services time. Erev Rosh Hashanah is on Monday, September 6th at 5:30. Let me say it again. Monday, September 6th, 5:30. Rosh Hashanah Day 1 is on Tuesday, September 7th at 9:30 a.m. Day 2, Wednesday, September 8th at 9:30 a.m. Kol Nidrei, Wednesday, September 15th at 6 p.m. Yom Kippur Day, Thursday, September 16th at 9:30 a.m. Iskor will be recited around 11:45 a.m. Okay? And then after we come back for the Mincha, Ne'ilah, and end of Yom Kippur service that day at 6 p.m. The fast ends around 8:20 p.m. that day. So thank you everyone for being here. If you want more information, go to our website, High Holidays, www.szwinipeg.ca/HHD Live. HHD Live, that means High Holidays Live. You will have all the information there, catering, services, everything you need. Again, thank you again. Have a wonderful day. Shana Tova, and hope to see you soon. Bye, everyone.